welcome. Quote Me on That podcast is an initiative of Quote This Woman Plus. Quote This Woman Plus, also referred to as QW Plus, is a gender justice organization that links women plus experts to the media. Quote Me on That introduces our women plus experts to the world. Welcome to Quote Me on That, an initiative by Quote This Woman Plus. And Quote This Woman Plus is a gender justice organization aimed at increasing the voices of women plus in the media. My name is Renee Sparks, and today's episode features the sharp and fearless Zimbini Madikiza, a sexual and reproductive health advocate, feminist thinker, rural women's rights activist, and global Atlantic fellow, which is connected or linked to Tekano Health Equity South Africa. Welcome, Zimbini.
For having me. Hello, Renee.
Awesome. Zimbini brings a rare and powerful voice that challenges how we talk about feminism, access, and justice, especially when it comes to the voices that very often are left behind. So Zimbini, welcome again. We are going to get into it. We shall be talking about who you are, what spurs you on, and the work that you do. So I'll get into it. How did your journey as an advocate in sexual and reproductive health and rural women's rights begin?
Thank you so much for having me. It's really quite an honor, and enkosi kakhulu for organizing this space so that abantu basekuhlaleni, especially omama basezilalini, nabo bakwazi ukuba ivoices zabo ziviwe. I think for me, it all started, I think, just when I was about to end my teenagehood. When I was 18, I actually gave birth, right, to a beautiful young girl. It was such a very tough time, because ndikhulele ezilalini, ndizalelwe ezilalini, iclinic kule lali ndandihlala kuyo, like yayingekho, so we had to either catch a taxi that's gonna take you to town and then from town go to the clinic, okanye you walk ke ukuya eclinic, and ke it was really far. And sometimes you'll get there and then you find that there's no contraception, right? And it was not even a matter of like a contraception of your choice, but sometimes you'll be told that there's no stock out and stuff like that. So I really also experienced, challenges that are faced by rural women when it comes to, the structural injustices that are there. I've witnessed women, but because we have strength, right, we're able to maneuver in all of those structural injustices, because, poverty affects women, especially abantu basezilalini. Issue of being able to just make, a choice, like to just decide that, I don't feel like doing this today, you can't be able to make those choices in the environment that you grew up. So women are just like, like we must just receive and not ask or question. So Londo leyo yenza into yobana choices that we're actually making ibe choices esingafuni uzenza thina, but because funeka satisfy society, then senze ezo choices, we do those choices. And I mean, it means there's also issue of limited access to education, and because yes, the schools may be there, right? The schools are there, but if a command's endlini, the young girl needs to go fetch water kuqala before kuyiwe esikolweni. The young girl needs to cook kuqala before kuyiwe esikolweni. Xa ibuya esikolweni, again, funeka sihoyile. I remember my older sister used to do those things for us, when she was coming back when we were coming back from school. she had to go fetch water and then like asilungiselele food and clean the house and everything. And we were doing homeworks, right? And then Nina busy taking care of us. So I think they're also part of the role that women play, especially from a young age, who are from the rural areas, really shaped, who I am, and my own lived experience of, I'm also like a gender-based violence survivor. I know how it feels to be in that abusive relationship. I know how it feels not to be able to make a choice for wena ke ngoku naku awukwazi ukwenza a choice. I know how it feels for you not to have that opportunity of negotiating condom use, of negotiating, things of contraception and stuff like that. I've experienced those things. So I think then my own lived experience and, the experiences of the women that I grew up around really shaped my sexual and reproductive health and rural women's rights, advocacy, and activism.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, as you're talking, it's like it's all about lived experience and bringing and kind of weaving all of that rich experience into the world of advocacy and the world that you've kind of been exposed to, I suppose, beyond Global Atlantic Fellows or Tekano, So I think that's really, really amazing that you've shared that with us, and thank you for that. You center rural women in your work. What does feminist advocacy look like in those spaces? So outside of urban spaces, you've shared a little bit about the role of young women or girls, having to go and get water and having to cook and having to take on that gender norms. I think really is what you're saying, embodying those gender norms. But so, how does advocacy then, or feminist advocacy, look like in those spaces?
I think it goes with first realizing and acknowledging the important role that young girls and women play in our homes, in our communities, in the society, at school, at the playgrounds, like just acknowledging their existence and their importance in those spaces. And like I said, as women, we really carry so much burden of, of poverty, of caregiving, and and also just of cultural expectations. I think what helps us to carry all of that is grace and the strength that is in us already, right? So then what resonates with me is then how do we recognize intentionally those women? How do we listen to those women? Voices zamantombazana amancinci zivaluishwa kanjani into the space, how do we support and allow women to make their own decisions? I think then when it comes to your questions of your question, is I think it's really based on women. Feminism in the rural context, the way I see it, is about presence, right? Is about visibility of a woman, right? Is about, how women are so grounded in communities, and how deeply and intentionally women listen, right? We listen. And I think the other component is the component of effective participation in places of power in the communities, right? How does that look like? And, when I speak about that and you take it to the rural women context, it's that place of power. A picture of it is not in a boardroom or podium, but the picture of it is what is on the ground, is on the sports ground, it's in the hall, it's under a tree. It's even at my own home or at that woman's house stead, It's basically on the dirty roads, right? That presence of a woman who's able to organize, who's able to mobilize, and who's able to lead campaigns. Just that in the rural context, we might not say this is a campaign, but abe umntu ongumama e-organizile, kube kukho ingxaki ibikhona ekuhlaleni, a-organize umntu ongumama so that we come up with solutions. But okay, njengoba kwenzeke le ngxaki, sidlula kanjani kuyo. You know, that's organizing. You see them leading those dialogues into the communities.
Yeah.
So I think that's another component of it. And I think the other component is what I've mentioned, choices. Women must be able to make choices ezizobaphilisa kakuhle, i-choices ezizokwazi ubenza uba babe ngabamama bazimbokodo nyhani baqinileyo nyhani. So I think it's really based on the presence now when we're talking urban versus the rural feminism into the community context, according to your question. Yes, I hope dependently.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I love the fact that what you're describing is something we can see. We see women cooking together or talking to each other or going out in the communities and being in those spaces. And we might not necessarily see it as activism, but yet whose definition of activism do we follow, right? So, I mean, we are in a space now that we can recreate all of this. And what you're saying to me is campaigning and activism doesn't need to look the way that maybe in urban spaces we think it is. Rural spaces have their own way of doing it that is actually as effective, if not even more effective, because it really speaks about Ubuntu. It really speaks about that being together and kind of shaping that narrative. That's amazing. Thank you so much. What are some of the most persistent silences around sexual reproductive health in rural areas that you've come across so far? Because I know you do quite a lot of work around sexual reproductive health rights within like villages in the Eastern Cape.
So sorry, you are cutting with network. What are the what?
What are the more persistent silences in sexual reproductive health in rural areas?
Okay, I think firstly, we've read about this, we've heard about this, we've seen children as young as 9-year-olds giving birth, you know, in one of the rural areas of the Eastern Cape. We've seen 10-year-olds, we've seen 11-year-olds, we've seen 12-year-olds giving birth, children giving birth, right? And also, I think we've also heard about so many cases of rape of children, right? 9-year-olds, 2-year-olds, right? We've heard about that. And we've also then now with the population that I engage with, I mean, they share their stories of dating with me, right? They tell me what their boyfriends tell them to do and not do. For instance, this other dialogue that we held of adolescent girls in one of our programs, one girl said that and I mean, we did get consent of sharing their voices before, you know, we actually do these dialogues, and they give us consent to say, yes, please do share our voices. So she said that her boyfriend said that let us not use a condom because I can't feel you when we're having sex if we use a condom. And the other one said that please don't take contraception because I love you. I want to have a baby with you. And then that child actually got pregnant and the boy is nowhere to be found. I think what I'm trying to show is, without even answering the question exactly how you asked it, Renee, I think these scenarios that I'm playing are very sufficient to see how these young girls and women are silenced into our societies. We're also doing we're drafting a fact sheet that we're hoping that will publish. Myself and Aziza Ranungwala, a Tekano Fellow as well in our social change initiative that really speaks on activating community-led response, to prevent teenage pregnancy and rape into the communities. We had the intergenerational dialogue as well there. So one of the fascinating views that we got from Omakulu that we invited for the intergenerational dialogue was I quote exactly what that Makulu said. She said, we can't discipline our children anymore because now they are protected by the state. They have rights. The other woman said that we can't discipline our children anymore because they will take you to court. We've seen our neighbors going to court because they can't discipline our children. I'm just painting a picture, of the narratives that are there, when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, because Omnyo Umakulu was saying that they come in with information already from the outside, they don't tell you when they start their menstrual periods. You just see your child pregnant. So I'm just putting these views out here, Renee, just to bring in the voice of what the rural women are saying when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. I mean, we are going to publish these views word for word. We are going to go to them so that we as sexual and reproductive health advocates come together to see how do we advocate for better access? How do we advocate for better sexual and reproductive health and rights? Utilizing or listening to the voices, because sometimes we assume things that they are happening this way, they're happening this way, they must happen this way, they must happen this way. But when you get deep and listen, you come up with, things that you didn't even think of.
Yeah.
So it's more of not being able to answer your question now, but to say, let's answer it together. Let's bring in those voices into the space. Let's spend time in getting those voices and co-creating, responses to sexual and reproductive health. Because remember, this is a very personal issue. It's a very, very personal issue. We experience sexual and reproductive health as women so differently. We never experience them the same way. We experience them so differently. I'm raising a girl child. I'm beautifully raising a girl child. Well, that's a story for another day. But I mean, what's so important is how this whole work gives me hope. It does give me hope. What gives me hope in terms of realizing the feminist context in the rural communities is seeing that young girl being confident now to speak in workshops. Like, we get reports that we use this information that you gave us like this, seeing that young girl reaching out to you saying, which you mentioned something about the constitution, where is it, the part that speaks about SRHR, and be like, go to section 27, we give them constitutions.
Yeah.
And I think seeing rural women being able to organize, seeing rural women being able to start up so beautiful cooperatives and maintaining them so as to speak to issues of, addressing their own structural and social determinants of health. I think I have about 3 cooperatives that I know that are women-led in my community. I work closely with the chief's wives, that is actually a leader of this cooperatives. And I think it's really based on, what I've also realized is the importance of language, Renee. I'm trying to be very inclusive today and we try to be so much inclusive. But when you go to the communities that, we work with and engage with, when we speak in our language, in the language that we're able to express ourselves, it also makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, So I think there's a great importance of, umuntu athethe ngolulwimi akwazi ukuzicacisa ngalo, ngoba kulapho azotsho akwazi uexpressa nee-feelings zakhe, neengcinga zakhe xa ethetha ngolwimi akwaziyo ukuzi-expressa ngalo. And the other thing that I think is important is being able to name injustice, even if it's uncomfortable. Being able to, even if it's inconvenient, being able to point out in rural women injustices, even in the spaces that we actually participate in. I mean, it's really part of the process of women empowerment.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive response, but also just again shining a light on the importance of meeting people where they are. Being able to speak and allow them to speak in their own mother tongue is so important, and for them to be included in a conversation. So I think I love that part of this entire discussion, is that you're making sure that rural women are not left behind. So thank you for that. And I think that in everything you've just spoken about, you've actually spoken also about the balance between the complexity of honoring culture and challenging harmful norms. Everything you've spoken about was just that, and that would have been my next question. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on now to your experiences as a Global Atlantic Fellow or Tekano Fellow. So your time as, and I mean, we know that it's a lifelong fellowship. So your experiences as a Global Atlantic Fellow or Tekano Fellow, how has that supported or shifted your advocacy work to date?
So my application for the Tekano Fellowship was based on my sexual and reproductive health and women rights and rural women rights activism and advocacy, right? To start there. So I was really very excited. When they say congratulations, you are part of the long list, you feel like, oh yes, at least what you stand for makes sense. So eventually being part of the fellowship, was a sign from God to say to me, I took it as a sign from God to say, you are on the right track. And God saying to me, I got you, continue. So, that space has been so incredible. It made me be able to use the term justice and injustice. It made me to realize how to use that that term, of injustice and realize and injustices. And I think the outstanding experience is the meaning of showing up. Showing up for each other, not just in slogans, but showing up for each other in strategizing, showing up for each other in co-creating knowledge, just showing up for each other, and also in sharing of resources, creating safe space for each other, and just showing up as a community, understanding a community. I think that's what has actually been a great experience. And I think then when it comes to the access to the global spaces through Tekano or being a Global Atlantic Fellow, I think when it comes to that, it's not about me then. The me takes a step back, and, I enter those global spaces carrying the stories and the wisdom of rural South African women with me, not just as case studies, but as women who are truth tellers, as innovators, as thinkers, and as leaders. So I think the participation now into the global spaces is just bringing in, those voices of, like you said, when you were starting, sometimes marginalized or left behind. So I try to bring in those voices. I think that's the experience, and that's I would say that my participation and how it has strengthened me. It has allowed me to strengthen me as a leader, and has also allowed a space whereby I bring in the people that I work with in the rural communities. And yeah, it has been incredibly beautiful, because when I say I bring in these voices, it's not just about maybe me telling them that there's these people and these people. It's actually about these women traveling from the rural communities, participating in conferences, coming in and speaking their language in these conferences. Because we've just did that during the PASA conference, whereby two Dabangulu community members actually came to the space so that we actually see what is it that we're actually talking about when we say we're speaking on creating social justice for rural women. So it has really been an incredible experience. And I've also brought in my own power into the space as well. So it has also created that space whereby I'm able to also bring in my power. And our famous line that we always say, learn, unlearn, and relearn. It has also been a very incredible, beautiful space. I mean, there's just a lot, and they understand the importance of, realizing that access to health is not just about access to medication, but it's also about addressing the structural and social determinants of health. If we could effectively do that, we'd really not find the overpopulated clinics that we're complaining about, because we'll be having very supportive environment that people live in, very beautiful livelihoods. So it has just made me understand the holistic livelihood of rural women, that they can participate in.
Fantastic. I mean, I can definitely recall you having community members, or even Tekano inviting community members to the Public Health Association of South Africa, PASA conference that you've just spoken about, but even in the past as well. And it makes such a huge difference bringing people from the ground whose I want to say, when researchers go into a space, they've extracted little bits of these people's lives and then they're showcasing it at conferences. But it's so different when those people can actually be in the space and ask the questions. It is really powerful. I think I was privileged a few years ago with PASA to take a group of HIV counselors to PASA in Paris. That was a few years ago. But it was so amazing. The questions they asked researchers were sitting back going like, who are these people? They were asking very real questions about, accountability, and have you gone back and have you shared this with communities? And very often that's where researchers kind of fall down, right? But you're bringing that inclusivity and making sure that circle is closed, which is amazing. So awesome. You've actually gone and given us a look into what global solidarity looks like. You've spoken about your local context, taking it to global spaces. So thank you for that. And then also being true and bringing rural voices to global spaces, and even to local spaces where you have research being presented, etc. So thank you so much for that. The next one then is, what does it mean to take up space as a Black rural feminist in media or the public discourse? And I ask this because I'm also busy doing sessions on gender and intersectionalities. So yeah, I can see all of that in that question.
Yeah. Look, I think I'll be repeating what I said, but I think it's about two or three things. One, I think it's about language. How do we translate research into advocacy? How do we translate research? How do we translate policy into a reality? You know, how do you communicate that? How do you translate, how do you also translate research and policy into communication? How do you communicate, you know, research versus right to health or right to sexual and reproductive health? And I mean, again, it's about language, right? The language that we use, the terms that we use, the words that we use as well, you know, the target audience. Are we able to read the room? Oh, I'm talking with these people now. I'm talking with these people. Are we able to do that shift? Because I think it's important to be able to read the room so that you are able to influence the you know, the social justice cause well when you are actually talking with different populations. And I mean, I think it's, again, like what I said, being able to stand your ground, know who you are into the space, and also being able to say those uncomfortable and have those uncomfortable conversations or inconvenience conversations, you know, the conversations that do not make you sleep at night. Be able to, you know, foster those. And I think also, I think it's just to be able to be you still while you're doing it, be able to still feel the love in your heart so that you are able to ease anxieties and be able to smile and just be able to be a relatable person. I mean, I always bring everything to reality. I always bring everything to reality. Off screen, how are we? On screen, how are we? What's the difference, right? And you know, it's also about centering rural women into policy decisions. Let us be able to utilize media to be able to center rural women into decision making, into the space, you know, into our conversations. How do you center that? Do you speak for them? Do you call them to speak? Like, how does it look like? Because I think media is a part of a very strong communication tool when it comes to activism and social justice, you know. So it's really, really important that we are able to use it in a way that will indeed intentionally influence change in our societies. So yeah. That's my 2 million.
Thank you very much. So for me, I think I've got two more questions. One being, what keeps you rooted when you are busy with all of these this advocacy work? What keeps you grounded and rooted?
I think what keeps me grounded and rooted is how the struggles and the fight of sexual and reproductive health and right to rural women's health is so generational, right? It keeps me rooted that I'm standing on the shoulders of the women who have who have walked this path before, who have planted this seed before, right? The women who came, you know, long before me, you know, my grandmother, my great grandmother, you know. So I think that really keeps me rooted, that it is indeed a generational work that does have a change, a bit of change in each generation. So I believe that the next generation that will come will carry on, you know, and I think the other part that makes me so rooted is like what I mentioned before, is how I draw hope and draw strength from seeing the women that we engage with, the girls that we engage with, wanting to participate into the spaces, being able to effectively speak and have the confidence to speak in workshops, in community meetings, and in just, you know, some other girl in one of the villages we went to, actually, you know, they love reporting. It's like they're like, oh, I'm happy I did this. They actually did I think it was a oral presentation or something like that. So they actually felt confident, you know, doing that. So I think that's what keeps me grounded, is that I really do have what it takes to contribute into creating a space where women especially from the rural areas, will also thrive and eventually achieve social change and social justice in our communities without actually having to leave our homes to go look for better opportunities, but a space whereby we're able to create our own and maintain our own and sustain our own opportunities at our homes, in our communities. I think that's what keeps me rooted.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. The last thing, and I promise it's the last thing, is if listeners would like, if you want them to leave with something, one thing, what is that? After all this discussion we've just had, what is the one thing you'd like to leave listeners with?
I think as rural women, we are thinkers, you know. As rural women, we are leaders. As rural women, we are carers, we are fighters. As rural women, we are organizers, you know. We have what it takes as rural women, you know. We are doing it in the rural communities. And I think sometimes we must not just be seen as passive recipients of aid, passive recipients of help. Oh, we're coming to help them, we're coming to help them. You know, we do have what it takes. So I think what is important is for people to invest in rural women, is to stand with rural women, you know. And I think most importantly, we want the world to know that we lead with love, right? We do everything with love. So yeah, I think that's yeah, I think that's what I want to leave you with. I mean, sinamandla singomama basezilalini kakhulu. So yeah, we also open to people, you know, wanting to intentionally stand and invest rather than, you know, just saying we're coming to provide aid, because then that means we will be silenced and have to go with the ideas of the outsiders. But we want the outsiders to actually come and see what we are doing. It's just a matter of, you know, road infrastructure, a matter of, you know, poverty, a matter of, you know, having to spend more money in terms of just getting to a facility and stuff like that. So it's things that if they can be addressed, we will definitely achieve social justice. So yeah, I think that's what I want to leave you with, that I'm a beautiful champion of people who lead with love. Let's love people. Just, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was Zimbini Madikiza, a bold voice reminding us that feminism is not just a theory. It's lived, it's local, and it often has the face of a rural woman. You've been listening to Quote Me on That podcast, which is brought to you by Quote This Woman Plus. If this conversation expanded your thinking, share it, tag us, and help us amplify the Women Plus who are reshaping the narratives. Until next time, stay listening, stay questioning, and always ask who's missing from the mic. Thank you so much.